Hi guys, Amia here. Welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before and if you're back, thank you so much. Today we're going to be talking about everything that I don't like in a romance book because a few weeks ago I did a video about everything that I do like. So I think it probably makes sense to do a list of things I don't like. I'm just going to preface this by saying there are probably things I'm going to forget because that is just my nature. I'm gonna probably watch this video, or while I'm editing, I'm gonna look at this video and think there's so many more things that I could have said, and I completely did not say them because I forgot. But I do have a list, so I'm hoping that this does a good job encompassing everything that I find exhausting about romance books, as much as I love them. And without further ado, let's get into them. First things first, the whole off limits trope. And I think this is probably best explained as that whole trope between my brother's best friend, where there's a bit of a conflict of interest because the person that you are attracted to or have an interest in dating is a friend of your brother's. And I think I find it to be so exhausting these days. It's funny because when I was a teenager, I ate this trope up like nobody's business. I absolutely loved it. And if you were somebody who happened to be on Wattpad in like the 2010s, that was the time. You just needed to be there to understand. I don't know how Wattpad is these days, but back when I was a huge Wattpad reader, this was a really, really common trope. And it's something that's followed me into like traditionally published books. And I think now, as a woman in her mid 20s, I just don't love the trope now. And especially because the more that I think about it, the more it's just control. And I don't know whether it's just my state of mind or where the world is at the moment. The thing about the trope is that it's usually on the woman's end. So it's usually a man in her life, whether that is her brother or her father. It's more common with the brothers, where they are the ones that are preventing it. And it feels now, looking back, now as a woman in her mid 20s, it feels just more like control, a way of exercising control over her life and over her decisions. And honestly, the fear behind it, I think, is valid. So that whole reason of if you date somebody that is a friend of your brother's or whatever, and you break up, then there's a chance that it ruins an entire friendship or the dynamic will never be the same, which I think is valid. But the thing about a romance book is that there is always supposed to be a happily ever after, meaning that when you're going into a romance book, the expectation is that they will end up together forever. So, with that in mind, why do we then push that as a point of conflict, knowing that this is a couple that is supposed to be written as being endgame, essentially? So, that fear isn't that real if you think about it. At least that's just my thinking. But yeah, it's something that as I've grown older, I've begun to see in a completely different light. We all hopefully grow and evolve. And it's just one of those things where I enjoyed it when I was much younger and much less prone to overthinking and a lot less wise. And now as an adult, I'm just kind of over it because I think there's no need. It's one of those unnecessary conflicts that I think we can just do without. Or maybe you can stay in YA, maybe, but when it comes to like adult romance, I just don't think that there's a place for it anymore, at least for me, because it's just not something that I'm interested in or want to tolerate or want to explore even further than I have in the past. Another thing I'm so sick of is everybody flirting with the MMC. And this is usually popular in like heterosexual romances. It's something that is very, very ingrained in us as a society, where it feels like when there is an attractive man and he's dating somebody, every other woman wants him and every other woman is trying to get him and is kind of undermining the authority of the woman that he's dating. And it's particularly popular with like sports stars or men who are famous or men who have some sort of power, who are like rich or powerful. And then they have these scene where they take the female MC out and then most of the time it's like a service worker towards the man, and I'm just kind of sick of it. I think I've read too much. And maybe it's because I've never dated an athlete or somebody that's famous or something that's really powerful, but I just don't think it's that common. Like the way that they make it look like in certain books is like they're being hounded for their attractiveness, which I just don't think is the case. Now, this could totally be me being very naive. I admit that. It could be me coming from a very ignorant place. So if that is the case, please feel free to correct me, but I just don't think it's that prevalent in real life. And again, I do like a story that's grounded in reality, which is why it's very difficult for me to like a fake dating trope. Or when it comes to romance, it's very hard for me to like anything that seems out of the ordinary or anything that I need to overly suspend my disbelief for. And this plays into it where I'm just like, every woman is not actually after your partner, and we need to stop it because it's not as common for women. So when you flip it, if the woman in the story is not so much that every man is trying to flirt with her and every man is trying to get with her and every service worker is crossing boundaries to flirt with her and ignore the man that she's clearly on a date with. And so it's interesting that it's not the other way around. Whereas I think that if it was a human instinct to for human beings to flirt with other people, despite the fact that they're clearly sitting with somebody that they're in a relationship with, then wouldn't it be the same both ways? Again, it's just more so the more that I grow and the more that I think, and I just kind of analyze the effect that certain tropes and things that we see in the media affect everyday life. And I think that's just one of them. On the back of that, we need to talk about not everybody's ex is the villain. And this is particularly the case I find with like male MMCs, where his ex girlfriend or his ex people that he slept with, they always need to be painted as the devil. And it's so annoying because it's done to such a degree where it comes across as wanting to villainize other people in an attempt to legitimize the connection between the MCs. And I just don't think that it's necessary. If anything, I think it devalues it for me because I feel like, why does everybody that you used to associate with romantically, sexually, whatever, why do they have to then be the devil in order to put this new thing that you have in a different category? Basically, I just wish that we had more relationships that ended on good terms, in good faith. Like we just realized that we were not compatible or our relationship just ran its course, that we just don't work. And it doesn't have to be this whole thing about having a villainous ex that is trying to steal the person back, and then there's this whole like confrontation. It's a bit much. This again ties back to all the books that I read in my teens and early 20s where they would have these confrontations with the exes, or the exes are trying to sabotage their relationships. And I think that while it does happen sometimes, I don't think it's that prevalent again, and it just kind of removes value from the relationship. Another thing that happens that I really don't like is when body shaming occurs for the exes. So one of the MCs or both of them kind of body shames what the ex or the person that they were sleeping with looked like. They'll either highlight a part of their bodies that they now find repulsive or they think were not that attractive in hindsight, trying to compare them to the new person that they're with, or they'll say something like, oh, she's just full of plastic surgery, she has breast implants, she has Botox, she has lip filler. You don't really need to be doing that, because for me it's very transparent and it very much gives it secure, and I just don't think that it's necessary. It's one of those things where if it was in like one or two books, if I was reading it in a way that felt sparse, then I would be okay with it. But if it's like every other book, I'm like, guys, we need to find other ways to go about this, because it's becoming very obvious that everybody's kind of trying to write the same thing. And when you're not in a space where you see other women automatically as your ops, I'm just like, it's a bit tired. We need to let go and just find another way to create conflict or find another way to introduce tension. Like this whole ex being the absolute devil in both ways for both partners, I just can't get with it anymore. I'm kind of tired. It's overdone and it's overplayed. Another thing, this might get me in trouble because there are people who really like this, but age gaps. I just can't do an age gap. The only time an age gap doesn't really matter to me is when the younger person in the dynamic is at least 35. And then I'm like, okay, even 30, I think once the younger person is 35 and above, I don't mind it so much. But it's often when they're not that I have a problem with it, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. And it's something that I keep thinking about, especially if the author is constantly bringing it up again as a point of contention, as something that needs to be constantly acknowledged. I just can't get on board with it. It doesn't feel right. And if it doesn't feel right, then I can't believe in their love. And if I can't believe in their love, then I don't really believe in the story. And so it becomes boring and unreadable. So I'm not really a big fan of an age gap in real life or in books. I just think that people should stick to people that are close to their ages. And if they're not, they should at least be in a place where they are making informed decisions about what it is that they're doing and not being taken advantage of. Next, cheating. No, I've never read a story in which cheating worked. I don't see cheating as something that you can redeem. I don't like books with a cheating slash redemption arc for both or one of the characters. I just can't. cheating's a hard pass for me in life and in art. I just find it very hard to respect people that cheat because I think cheating is a huge violation. And it's a pity that it's so normalized in society. So we're able to move past it really quickly. And I know that everybody has their feelings about this. Some people don't view cheating as that big of a deal. Some people don't think that it's as big of a violation as I'm making it out to be. But I think it's one of the biggest betrayals that you could ever do to somebody that you're in a relationship with, or somebody that is under the impression that they're in a monogamous relationship with you. I think it's probably one of the worst things that you can do. And I have never read a book in which it was done well, or it was done in a way where I'm like, okay, I get it. And I know why now you guys are embarking on a journey of forgiveness and letting go and trying to start over. But for me, it has never been done well. And I have a really hard time. If anybody has any books in which they think cheating was done well, maybe recommend. I'm always open to changing my mind when presented with new, better ideas, facts, whatever you want to call it. But right now, cheating's a hard pass for me. I can't separate it. My feelings get too involved and I just can't. Cheating is not for me, definitely. I hate when one of the characters, they have certain beliefs, they have certain moral codes, they have certain characteristics. All of a sudden they meet the other MMC, they fall in love, they embark on a relationship, and all of a sudden they then proceed to strip that character of every single thing that they believed in order for them to now fit in with this person that they fall in love with. So it's basically going against everything that makes them them. So I'll give a solid example. So say you had a character in which they were against marriage, they were against living in the countryside, they wanted to have a job, they wanted to earn their own money, they wanted to be child free. All of a sudden they fall in love, and then in an epilogue they're barefoot and pregnant, they have 7 children, she stopped working and they live in the countryside. Are you kidding? Like, that to me, I hate. And I feel like it's done a lot to female characters where it's almost this belief that if they had a certain thing, then they would change the parts of themselves that you should consider to be fundamental beliefs. And it just makes me so angry because it's different if they portrayed themselves in such a way that they were open to change about certain things. So maybe they weren't particularly set in their ways, it's just a belief that could be tweaked in the right circumstances, then I would understand. But you cannot tell me that somebody who hated all these things, somebody who vehemently was against certain things, all of a sudden has now changed because they found love. I hate that. And I hate it so much, and it happens so often. And it's part of the reason why I almost get tired of certain romance books, because I just know that they're going to make certain things a behavioral trait, a fundamental standpoint of somebody, only for them to rip it away because they found love. And it irritates me to no end. It doesn't feel real. Then you almost start to question what parts were fake, what parts were real. Were you just doing it for shock value? Were you just doing it to I don't know how to describe it, but I just know that it pisses me off. That I can say. And it makes me question the entire thing, the entire experience. Or when somebody who was previously ambitious all of a sudden has stopped working, has taken a different course, they're no longer passionate about what they used to be passionate about. I hate it so much. You have no idea. I'm just like, why would you do that? It's so irritating. Up next, we have quirky female characters in particular. Because for me, having read so many books in which there was a quirky female character, I think it's just a ruse for talking about a woman who is constantly embarrassing herself, not only in front of the male main character, but just publicly. And as somebody with strong secondhand embarrassment, if quirky female character is constantly making me cringe, it almost feels a bit like a humiliation ritual for her at this point, because it's never really quirky. It's always quirky in a way where she's the butt of every joke. She's constantly embarrassing herself. She's constantly doing things that would jeopardize her livelihood. And then it almost feels like it's entertainment for the male main character. And it's so frustrating because to me, that's not what quirky is. That's quirky is not another name for embarrassing yourself constantly or leaving your brains at the door. And I feel like that's kind of what it is in romance. That needs to change. I'm not saying that there can't be quirky female characters. There's nothing wrong with quirky female characters, but it's quirky in the way that it has been written for years that annoys me. It's like a one note, one track, one trick kind of quirky, and it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel authentic. It feels like a character that she's playing, and it doesn't sit right with me. After reading so many, I just can't. I don't know what that makes me, but I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Problematic families. People can have problematic families. That's not really what pisses me off, but I'll give you a solid example. So I was reading the Bergman series, and the Bergmans were these really like close knit family that was very functional. They had their parents who were married and in love, and then they had all these kids, and then these kids went on to find love. But what I noticed in that series is that every single significant other of a member of that family came from a very problematic family. So it's kind of devaluing where they come from in an attempt to legitimize the family that they're going into. So for me, something that really turned me off that series, apart from the fact that it just felt very same, a bit preachy. They were living in Los Angeles, but somehow didn't find, diverse love interests for seven siblings is wild. But also, I think it's also the fact that every single one of those characters had problems with their families. And it just made me, if one or two or even three of them had problematic families, then I feel like I would be okay. But every single book, I think I read book 1 to 5, and every single one of those love interests had issues with their families. And then they were, getting into relationships with people in this perfect family. Maybe it's just a thing where the author just has a pattern that she likes to follow. But for me, it just came across as quite disingenuous, especially with the female character. Can she just come from a family that loves her and adores her? So it's usually the female character who comes from a family who she's struggling with. Either she has like mommy or daddy issues, or she's been abandoned, and it then increases her propensity to depend on the male main character. And I just think I'm really, really tired. I just want to see female characters who come from healthy families, because they do exist. And I think it's coming from a place of wanting to see something different. Another thing I hate, proprietary behaviors in books. Again, this is something I loved as a young girl. I always thought it'd be so cute to just have somebody who treats you like they own you, and they'd be shouting mine everywhere. But now it just comes across as having issues to me. Like, you shouldn't be treating your significant other like they're your latest handbag or car that you just bought. There is a line, I think, between being, I guess, if you want to say healthily possessive, acknowledging that there is a relationship between both of you and you guys are each other's person and things. There's certain proprietary behaviors that I just can't get on board with. Controlling what they wear, what they eat, where they go, who they hang out with, being jealous when they're having normal interactions with somebody of the opposite sex. It's not even that anything inappropriate is happening, but it's just that feeling of then trying to prevent something that doesn't even have the potential to start. And I think that really pisses me off. Why can't we just treat people like people without making everything that is external of that a potential threat? I don't understand the mindset. For me, anyways, I can't speak for everybody, but to me, that possessiveness almost feels like a prison. And it's not really particularly a dynamic that I enjoy. So whenever I see it in a book, I just kind of get annoyed and don't want to engage further, because I just know that it will escalate or make me feel uncomfortable. And that really, really reduces my enjoyment of the book. Another thing, insecure FMCs. I am tired. I am so tired of perfectly normal women who should have the utmost self confidence being insecure. Something I've been seeing recently online is people talking about how society loves to tell women to love themselves, but the moment that they do, society hates them. When people talk about pretty privilege, and then other people feel the need to then go and tell them, you're not pretty, you're not beautiful, almost being offended by how confident they are in themselves and the fact that they don't nitpick themselves or they don't hyper criticize themselves. That's what I'm talking about. Like, society likes to humble women, and I hate a female character that humbles herself to that degree, where there's really no need for her. I don't think somebody's confident in the face of a lack of insecurity, because I feel like everybody has insecurities in some way, shape, or form. But I think it's that level where her insecurities rule her life. That is what I'm specifically tired of, especially a female character where she's insecure about so many things: her looks, her accomplishments, her family dynamics, her friends. That's why whenever we get a confident, and I'm not talking about somebody that's arrogant, I'm not talking about somebody who is self-serving, somebody who is self-centered. I'm just talking about healthy confidence within a woman, knowing that I'm actually a person that is worthy of being treated respectfully. I have intrinsic value. I have intrinsic self-worth. That is what I'm looking for more so in female characters. And it kind of kills me slowly when I'm reading a book about a woman that is so painfully insecure, because it upsets me so much. I just wish I could go in there and give her a hug and tell her that she is valuable and she is worthy of love. And this thing that this guy is giving her, even though she's giving the same thing, she's deserving of it because she's in a relationship where there's give and take and they're talking. Like, it's not so much that she doesn't deserve what she's getting, because it's what she's giving in return. I don't want to be in an insecure person's head. It's a bit mean, but you know what I mean. It's just too many female characters, and it annoys me because I just feel like it could be so different. Insta love, again, I can never believe in insta love. I believe in instant attraction. I do feel like there are people who can see somebody and know that they want to sleep with them or know that they want to be in a relationship with them. That I can believe in. But love, declaring love, the thing is, right, I don't believe that you can love somebody without knowing them. That's just my opinion. I fundamentally do not believe that you can love somebody when you don't know them, because to love somebody is to know them, is to know everything about them, their good sides, their bad sides, their flaws, and then you agree to love them because of or irrespective of certain things about them. So if you don't have all that information, how could you possibly love someone? That's why insta love doesn't work, because in order for a romance to work for me, I have to be able to believe that if they were in the real world, they would go the distance. And I do not think that insta love is what takes people the distance, because looks fade and life happens. You become sick, you get pregnant, you gain weight, and if you're only instantly in love with the image of who you met that day, not even the knowledge, the image, then how could it possibly last? That's just my view. What do you guys think? What's your view of insta love? Another thing that really irritates me is the whole trope of like lack of experience, or one character, especially the female character, but it happens for both, where their lack of experience becomes their entire personality. Somebody not having experience either in terms of relationships or sex or whatever, it's just one or two aspects about them. It's not their entire personality. It's not what makes them a human being. That's what I'm trying to say. And so I think that with the whole like inexperienced MC, it just becomes a trait where they then treat them with kid gloves, or as if they need like guidance in every aspect of life. I think it permeates to real life, which is why a lot of people, whenever they don't have experience in a certain area, it makes them insecure, it makes them question whether or not they're valuable. And I just think it's not really experience that makes people valuable. People just have value because they have value. And experience in that way is kind of like an add-on to me. It's not a prerequisite to see somebody as a worthy human being. It's just an add-on. It's like a thing. It's like a yeah, it's like an add-on. That's just how I see it. You don't have to have certain experiences in order for me to view you as worth spending time with, worth dating, worth loving. The only things I think are really important are like certain moral standpoints, values, interests, compatibility, and then the rest you can just work your way up to. But the thing about books is that they make it so much so that it's their entire personality. They're constantly mentioning it, they're constantly trying to devalue the person, or even when it's the woman and then it's the man that has all the experience, it then makes the man have a leg up on her and they make him seem like a more valuable person. And I just hate that. Happened in Twilight, happened in 50 Shades of Grey. We need to be done with this whole naive girl trope. I just cannot. It's just a lot for me. And if I even get a whiff of a book being like that, that's the end. I DNF when I continue. Overemphasis on body parts and attractiveness. I was reading these two books by Elsie Silver in one of her series. It was the one where they were living on a farm and they were brothers, I believe. And the descriptions of the characters in terms of like attractiveness and what they found attractive about the other love interest was a lot. And there are ways to portray you being attracted to somebody without the constant internal dialogue of mentioning certain body parts or mentioning how attractive they are and how much they affect you. It makes me feel uncomfortable after a while, because it feels like you're not even speaking about a person. You're just speaking about that person in service to you in reference to what they could do for you. And it's very annoying, because there are certain authors like Kat Sebastian or JJ Mulder where the attraction between the love interest is very palpable. Like at no point in any of the stories did I ever doubt that there was attraction between them, but it wasn't to such a point where I felt uncomfortable. I just don't like an over sexualization of a character, especially in everyday circumstances, like you're grabbing a coffee or you're in school or you're taking a walk or something, and all they can mention is everything that they find attractive about the other person in hyper specific detail. In real life, it would make me very uncomfortable, especially if said out loud. But in books, it does make me feel equally as uncomfortable. The attraction to the person does not always need to be forefront of every interaction that they have together. We can portray attraction in a way that is a bit more subtle, a bit more respectful, in a way that makes you think it's only just one aspect of the relationship that you have with this person, and it's okay. A little bit easy. Another thing, I hate repetition in real life. I really do. I don't like when people tell me things multiple times, especially if it's an instruction. So I can only imagine that it would translate into books, and it does. I just don't like repetition, especially if it's being done in a tell, don't show kind of way. So it's not as if you're showing me that this person has like a certain behavioral trait or has a certain characteristic. For me, it's taking on page time. Stop repeating it. I saw it when you said it the first two times. We don't have to keep repeating the same aspects about them. I promise I don't have short term memory loss. I can read and I can translate certain things, and it doesn't have to constantly be repeated time and time again. I know that there are people who don't mind it so much, but I mind it a lot. Growling or making any sort of animalistic sounds, please. I just can't. Like, if you guys have met somebody that growls, let me know. But I don't know anybody that growls in real life. So it's like growling, baring of teeth. Can we just stop? You know what? There's only one exception. I would say maybe like Twilight, because they were low key not humans. So if it's in a book where they're not really human, I can sort of understand that they might have like certain animalistic traits or certain traits that are not exhibited by your everyday average human. But there are just certain books. You're not a dog. And even then, like, I have exposure to dogs. Like, they're not always growling. The dogs I know and interact with, they're usually quite quiet. And growling is behavior that I would associate with them. So a grown ass man growling, please ease up. This is more so for contemporary romances, but I really don't like when brands are mentioned in books. So it's kind of like if you're describing your house and you're talking about your toaster. I don't like when if you say something like, "Oh, I have like a Smeg kettle," or something. I don't like a brand mention with, "I got this Gucci bag." It takes me out of the story. Now, this is not as much of a crime as some of my other points are, but there's something about the mention of a brand or a label or a designer that just kind of puts me off. And you're less likely to see it in historical romances and more likely to see it in contemporary romances. Violence for no reason. Punching people, punching adversaries, punching exes. Can we please leave it in the 2010s? Especially because in real life, assaulting people is illegal, and books don't treat it that way. They really treat it like it's something to be like celebrated or something to be lauded. And I'm like, you do know that if you went to your ex's partner and punched him in the face just by virtue of being your partner's ex for any reason, you do realize that he could press charges and you could go to jail or do community service or whatever the hell the punishment is for behavior like that. Violence is not really something that attracts me to anybody, so it's something that puts me off. If I know that somebody's violent, I probably will avoid them because I'm not violent. If you decided to turn back that violence on me, I don't know what I would do. So if I know that somebody's inherently violent, I just will keep my distance and call it a day. So for me, I don't like violence, especially when it's extremely unnecessary. It could have been avoided, but you still put it in there in order to portray a really strong man or a strong woman. We could have done without this violence and it would have been a great book, but you chose to put it in, and now I'm not interested anymore. Alpha male, not for me. Can't really take anybody that identifies as an alpha male seriously, or an alpha female, or any discussion about feminine energy. I'm just like, can we just be people? I just cannot even with the whole I'm in my feminine, I'm in my masculine. These are hyper feminine. Anytime somebody mentions alpha male, alpha female, beta males, beta female, masculine energy, my brain shuts down automatically. I just can't entertain any conversation with you. I just find it very hard to take it seriously, if that makes any sense. Can we please be so for real? Usually, every positive trait that denotes strength is masculine, and every negative trait that denotes weakness is feminine. We don't need to gender everything. And certain traits, I just don't think is necessary. Alpha male, possessive, I'm just like, keep it. When I was 13, I could have seen the appeal of this. If I see a book with alpha in the title, forget about it. Not happening. And I make no apologies about that. I just can't do it. Trauma healed by love or sex. No, you were not healed because you suddenly had sex. And you are not healed because you found love. We need to stop this whole thing about like, now that she's found love, this childhood trauma or this extremely traumatic event that they went through has all been forgotten. I'm like, no, it hasn't been forgotten. You need to get your ass to a therapist immediately and talk to them about your issues. Your love interest has not cured you. If I'm sure of anything, it's that. The answer to your deep seated trauma is not love, and it is especially not sex. So the whole I was so traumatized by something, but now that I found myself in a relationship with somebody I consider exceedingly sexy, all is well in the world. No, all is not well. Maybe now you're less alone. Maybe now you're less insecure. Maybe now you feel accepted in a way that you never have. But what we're not going to do is sit here and pretend like you're healed because you are not. And you can ask Christian Grey about that. He knows everything I'm talking about. Also, I really hate the whole nice characters aren't worth your time. You know how in certain romance books you have the woman be attracted to the guy that is just a fundamentally terrible person and is just straight up trash. The only thing that makes him not trash is the fact that he's hot or wealthy. And then the person who might be trying to get into a relationship with them that is left in the dust is usually the kind person. I just can't deal with it. For me, the people that I would ordinarily be gravitating towards are always kind, nice people because those are the kind of people I like to surround myself with because it's how I like to be. So I figure if I want to be this way, then I can surround myself by people who are also this way. And then it contributes to a harmonious world. So whenever I see the main character just leave somebody or treat somebody who's genuinely so kind and nice and leave them in the dust, it annoys me to no end. If a main male character is an asshole, I'm not reading the book. I've just got to that stage in life where I just no, no. All of my favorite main characters have something in common, and that is the fact that they are all kind, fundamentally kind people. Even if they might be a bit snarky, they might be a bit arrogant, they might be a bit maybe disconnected from their feelings, but at the core of it, they're all extremely kind. If I did a rundown of all my favorite characters, that is something that you would see that all of them have, and that's just my thing, and that's what I love to see. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching this video. I would like to thank everybody that has subscribed to my channel. It's actually incredible the amount of views I've gotten in the last 6 months and the engagement and I feel very, very grateful for it. I'm so sorry if I came across as subdued in this video. I've just been really, really tired recently. I think my period is about to rear her ugly head and my energy levels are kind of zapped at the minute. But I still wanted to do this video. Not that I was ever the most exciting person. And to be honest, I did warn you if you go back to my first video. But if I ever think of anything else, I might do a part 2. For now, I had my comprehensive list and I think I've exhausted everything that I had on it. If you could like, comment, and subscribe, I would very much appreciate it. Tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like, tell me if you have alternate viewpoints. Thank you so much for sticking around, and I will see you when I next see you. Bye bye.